So I would say two things, and I love this. Firstly, I'd say fail fast, and then also lead with kindness and empathy. So I would say you learn far more from your mistakes than from playing it safe. If you're not making mistakes, you're probably not growing. So be transparent about what you don't know, stay curious, and keep on innovating.
Hello, and welcome to Pharma Sessions, a place for pharmaceutical leaders to come and learn from each other. I'm your host, Jonathan Kaskey. Technology and market trends are bringing change at an ever-accelerating rate, and no person, team, or company can afford to be left behind. Here, we dive into the strategies and tactics that our guests use to tackle these challenges and create new opportunities, and how you can do the same in your own organization. Welcome. On today's episode of Pharma Sessions, I'm thrilled to have Matthew Krzywosz, a global medical affairs leader and director of scientific communications and content at Astellas. Matthew's built a career at the intersection of scientific storytelling, medical strategy, and omnichannel innovation, shaping narratives across oncology, infectious disease, and women's health, while designing communications platforms that meet the evolving needs of both HCPs and patients. Today, we'll be exploring how medical affairs can create differentiated scientific narratives, use omnichannel strategy to amplify impact, and help brands stand out in competitive markets. Just that, no pressure. Welcome to the show, Matthew.
Thank you, Jonathan. Thank you. It's a pleasure being here.
Absolutely. So before we get into all the good stuff, I always like to do a little icebreaker. It's kind of cheesy. I stole it from another podcast, but I like it. So it's currently 12 o'clock. 12:16 Eastern, I guess 11:16 where you live out in Chicago. What have you had to eat so far today?
What have I had to eat? I had a protein smoothie this morning. So I tend to eat a little bit light in the mornings, and I usually eat bigger at night. So I think that allows me to stay more focused if I stay a little bit more leaner during the day.
And no caffeine? You're just
okay. Oh yeah.
Straight
I
rolling?
definitely had one cup of coffee. I was debating whether or not I needed a second one. It's been a lot of nonstop excitement since our Chicago Bears just won a big game this past Saturday. So I've just been jumping up and down all weekend and into Monday.
Nice. Well, you don't look blurry-eyed or anything. You're looking good. So that's great. All right. So I'm also interested in this because nobody outside of pharma actually knows what med affairs is. How did you first hear about it, and what interested you in medical affairs to begin with?
Yeah, absolutely. So my interest in medical affairs started pretty early on, actually during an elective class in pharmacy school at Butler University. So that class, was the first time I really saw a path where I felt that I could stay deeply rooted in the science, but also communicate it in a way that actually changes behavior. And I remember thinking, like, this is exactly where I wanted to be. But with that being said, that path wasn't linear. Like I worked behind the pharmacy counter during school, then moved to New York, worked for a startup, and then eventually found myself into the fast-paced world of consulting. And then all of these experiences, though, ultimately shaped how I think about med affairs and storytelling today.
Yeah.
So yeah, there's a lot there that I can unpack.
That is a lot there, right? Because that's so interesting to be going to school, I would assume, having not heard of med affairs before you started, to be a pharmacist, right?
Yes.
Which is not a storytelling career at all, right? So what was it in particular that called to you about that? Was it like the intellectual stimulation? Are you somebody who likes to read and write and stuff like that? Like what was it that resonated with you?
All the above there. I feel like earlier on in my career, I've always been fascinated with, I guess, the English language and also just how to get points across to people. It doesn't even have to be HCPs, but just to people in general in the most simplified yet effective way. So I saw a route where I felt that I could leverage my PharmD, put that scientific hat on, analyze and interpret data, but then kind of pair that with kind of the people-focused engagement skills to kind of turn all that data into something that's compelling and that's an efficient story that grabs attention of HCPs. So, even on top of that too, now there's all these digital approaches to storytelling that always keep me on my toes. And so I feel like there's never a dull moment. And there's ultimately too, I think, a really great sense of gratification, knowing that all of this work and all the storytelling we're doing essentially to help impact HCPs, that ultimately impacts how they provide their care for patients. So
Yeah, that's very interesting. It's that idea of simplification. I feel like I don't even know if it's a real quote. It seems like one of those fake internet quotes. It's always attributed to like Mark Twain or Pascal or something, where it's like, "I'm sorry, I didn't have time to write you a shorter. I didn't write a shorter letter, but I didn't have enough time," or something along those lines. And I feel like that's kind of the heart of it, right? Where especially talking to doctors, I guess MSLs get more time than say a pharma rep would.
Mhm.
But if you're talking about digital and things like microsites and modular content, that idea of simplifying has to be just like totally critical to the whole thing, I would imagine.
Absolutely. I think that's probably one of the hardest things that people in med affairs and in scientific communications have to face with today is just how to weed out all of the noise. I've worked across a couple different therapeutic areas, and through it all, the common thread, there's no shortage of data, and a lot of it is genuinely interesting. And but we're faced with these time constraints that HCPs have, and I think the challenge for us is to know what's good to know versus what will actually kind of move the needle clinically. So it's on us to be the experts on the data, but then also just know what is it specifically that they need to know. If we have a certain amount of time, what are the key takeaways that will really impact their care?
So there's so much I want to ask about, but one of the things is like you've done this on oncology, infectious disease, women's health, right? And what you're talking about is a need to understand the data at a super deep level, right? Those are three very different areas. How do you manage that as somebody who says, I'm a psychoms person? Like this is my job is to get really good at finding the nuggets of gold in any data set. How does that actually work in practice?
So how does that work? For me, as soon as you get into a new therapeutic area, you have to take some time to try to understand the nuances. Really kind of have to learn and lean on your teammates globally and also across all the affiliates. And I think in order for me and my team to deliver effective global content that is leveraged, we really got to take in all these different perspectives. And so, we're constantly meeting with and, understanding the voice of our affiliates and all those nuances and all those unmet needs. And by taking that all in, we're able to kind of produce a consistent global narrative that really resonates across the markets. So, and also too, another thing I like to add, in infectious disease and oncology and women's health, each therapeutic area has its own unique emotional and clinical context as well. Like oncology conversations look very different from women's health or infectious disease conversations. So you also kind of got to be a little bit sensitive to those nuances, but while still delivering, clear, actionable science. And so I think that challenge also really keeps us on our toes. And I think that's fascinating to be in.
Yeah, and I'm just going to pick up on something you mentioned here, which is supporting your global affiliates. In the past, you've described the idea of global teams creating a kitchen sink set of resources for affiliates. So, what is an effective global to local adaptation model look like, and how does it reduce friction for countries when they go about trying to engage these HCPs?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. And I love that kitchen sink analogy. So, I think it really starts with, and I kind of already mentioned it, you got to start with listening. You got to understand what the affiliates actually need versus what they maybe think that they need. So you really got to gauge interest early. Like I said, you got to schedule meetings with teams. I think it sounds so basic, but I think a lot of people in global roles, they think that they understand and they really don't. You got to take the time to meet with folks. Maybe they don't like meeting, send out surveys, they maintain an open door policy so that their ideas can come in. And also too, when affiliates feel heard, adoption skyrockets. And so for me, I always try to think that our global materials, they should be also as turnkey as possible. Ideally, affiliates should be doing minimal adaptation beyond just local regulations, some translations, maybe some minor contextual adjustments, but like key points, conclusions, summaries that we're producing from global should be clear, consistent, and like basically ready to use. So I've found that when you kind of reduce that friction for your affiliates, you're not only making their jobs easier, again, you're ultimately accelerating that scientific exchange, and then you're impacting more patient lives faster.
Right. So you're creating alignment around the sets of resources that they have, around the goals that you've identified, right, or your team has identified, related to communicating the most important parts from your scientific narrative, say, and then you're providing them with a tool set that they can choose from, because there's different cultures, there's different regulatory environments across the world. Is that the general gist of what you're saying?
Spot on. Yes. We don't want to be so prescriptive. We want to give affiliates choices. Sometimes there's a couple different channels and content formats that we want to be able to provide affiliates with, because it's not a one size fit all. So yeah, that's very important in today's day and age. As we all know, there's so many different omni-channel assets out there that can be leveraged.
Yeah. All right. So there's so many places we could take this, but let's focus on the enabling the global teams first. So part of this is training, right? So there's a couple. The role of the MSL, it will always be evolving. It has been evolving. It always will be, right? What are kind of forward looking? What do you think are the key capabilities an MSL must develop to move from sort of data dumping, right, or to this effective scientific storytelling that you're describing?
Yeah. So at the foundation, for every MSL, they got to understand their HCP, and everything flows from that. So beyond the scientific expertise, MSLs also need strong people skills. They have to be able to tell a story. They have to be able to ask thoughtful questions, engage in a true two-way conversation. So, data dumping, that happens when there's really no curiosity about what the HCP actually wants to discuss. Right. So, other critical capabilities, I would say, include they have to be adaptable, they got to have emotional intelligence, and then that business acumen. So, the most effective MSLs, they can read a room, they can pivot in real time, and then also ultimately connect that science to, the HCP's day-to-day challenges. So, I like to say the science matters, but how you deliver it matters just as much.
Yeah, and that active listening component is so essential, because that's kind of what a lot of it comes down to. You could think if I'm just following an agenda, right, that's going to lead me to more like just spewing information at you, versus trying to understand where you're at, where your patient population is, and that should, in theory, guide the conversation, assuming that your MSL team has, a solid foundational understanding of the key benefits of the technology.
Yeah, absolutely. And, I think for, MSLs, in order to be effective, a lot of the work happens before they even meet with HCPs. So again, I think this goes to the business acumen. They gotta have some pre-call planning work done. They should be able to share a draft agenda with an HCP, ask if it aligns with their interests, because that can completely change the tone of the interaction. It also signals respect for HCP's time and their priorities.
Yeah.
But then, yeah, I know you're laughing here. Yeah,
No, I'm laughing. I'm laughing because I totally love it. I have I try to communicate this in my organization, but it's no agenda, no attenda, right? If we're not saying what we're going to talk about, then why are we meeting, right? And if you can't articulate that ahead of time, this is how you avoid the situation of, whoa, that meeting could have been an email, right? So I'm curious, when you're thinking about that, like you're saying there's pre-work, what types of data sets are you encouraging your teams to look at that would make them kind of customize an agenda one to another versus the same for everybody?
Yeah, so I love talking about materials and content. So, like I said kind of earlier, MSLs, they should be equipped with a lot of resources. And I really want to stress the interactivity of these resources rather than just rigid slide decks from the past. So you shouldn't feel obligated to go from slide 1 to slide 30. Yeah, maybe there's a section you jump to immediately because it caught the HCP's attention earlier on, or maybe an MSL just uses a few summary slides and they rely on their training to really tell the rest of the story about the data. So I think that's also very key in today's day and age because there is so much resources, so much content that they can, but I think HCPs really want to just hear from them. They don't want to be looking at a slide constantly. They want to know that the person that they're trying to learn from understands it as well. So, got to let the conversation breathe and really not really force it down a predefined path that I feel like a lot of people try to still do.
Yeah, if it's okay, I'm just going to push a little bit on this, right? So can you give me an example of what might let's say I'm an MSL on the team and I'm going to meet with 3 different doctors this week, right? Like, what might I see as I'm doing my pre-call planning? What am I looking at that is allow me to prepare those effectively, and maybe a different story for each doctor?
Yeah, great question here. So let's just say there's a new publication with some very pivotal data that just came out. And so these 3 HCPs want to learn a little bit more about it. So I'd say before those meetings, the MSL should email them, hey, here's the publication. I'm excited to share some key details about it. And then maybe in the back of their head, they should maybe know these HCPs already. Maybe HCP 1 is a big stickler for the data. He or she wants to, really get into the figures, really get into the nuances. So that MSL is going to come to that meeting with a lot of tables and figures and really try to wow them with some of that data. Let's just say HCP2 is so time constrained and they only have a few minutes. That MSL should probably leverage maybe like an infographic that we create so that, it could quickly tell the story, hit the key points, and go into that interaction that way. And then let's just say HCP3 had some time, read the publication, was really just curious about, hey, so there's some safety data I saw that I just really want to double click in. So maybe that MSL has the big slide deck, whatever that they leverage, but boom, instead of like going again from slide 1 to slide 30, just go right to the safety information and you could call it a day there. So
right. Is there some way to systematize that or capture that so that if your MSL leaves all that information about the different likes and preferences of people, doesn't walk out the door with him or her? Or is it something where you're actually already understanding that because HCP1 visits X microsite and HCP2 responds to field triggered email, et cetera? Like what's the balance there?
Yeah, so I like to think that our MSLs are taking notes and putting this in the CRM about some preferences, but I also feel that this is something that AI will really be able to help us with. I don't think we're there yet, but I think we have a lot of ideas as to how it could really help amplify and really personalize, our interactions by kind of taking that information and I guess putting it into our systems. So
Right. Like if you can provide some type of structure to the data going in around this, it would be a great opportunity for AI to come in and help capture some of that around preferences, because I'm sure your MSLs are capturing all sorts of notes, but maybe the format of information that the doctor likes responding to, that might not be first and foremost. It's probably like the more meat of the conversation that they're focused on.
absolutely. I agree. And we're also trying to, like, we have here at Astellas, we're always trying to measure impact and, receive thoughts from HCPs on our content, because sometimes at the global level, we don't maybe get that from the local teams. So yeah, we always are trying to iterate and improve, because maybe, like I said earlier, it's not a one size fit all, and different HCPs want different things. So then I think ultimately that goes to the MSL to understand their HCP and make sure that they're providing them with the information through the right channel.
Yeah. So the omnichannel is so fascinating to me because it really is like it needs to be the right information. It needs to be the right channel. The example I often think about, not too long ago, I had to buy a couch. I was like getting advertised in various places, but I was like, I'm not on most social networks. Like I'm not on Instagram or whatever. And I'm like, you could have the best Instagram targeting with lookalike audiences and everything, but it's not going to reach me because that's not a channel I pursue. And the doctors are the same, right? Where some people are going to different journals, some people are spending time in whatever, your ViewMedis or your Doximities of the world. Other people aren't. And so I think that to me, that is a really intriguing place when you look at the impact of technology to kind of tie all of that together and hopefully come up with a much more like personalized journey for how you need to provide these different people different educational materials.
Absolutely. And I think, in pharma and in med affairs, sadly, we're still behind other industries in leveraging that content personalization, and I think really harnessing the power of analytics. So I think there's still more to come here, which is exciting. And because our HCPs need it, maybe more than a lot of other industries. So, yeah.
Yeah. Well, it's an opportunity, right? I was actually one of the previous episodes that just went up at the end of 2025. It was a guy named Jens from Nova who's in Med Affairs, and he actually when he was building out his team, purposely was hiring from other industries outside of pharma for just that reason, because like directionally they know what is working. You still have to work within the constraints of it's a regulated industry for good reason, right? And so I don't think it's ever fair to expect that it's going to become like a bleeding edge, tech firm type approach where just anything goes. But there's still things that can be learned, right? And there's still ways that you could take what works from other places, put some constraints around it, maybe what can be approved through med legal, and then make improvements over time.
And you know what? Yeah, that's spot on. And I also like to just think one day, maybe in 10 years from now, other industries are going to be wanting to maybe hire people from medical or, to leverage our advancements and everything that we're doing. I think we're getting there, but I'd like to see it one day where, we are the experts and we know all about the omnichannel and the insights and the analytics, and we'll become those people that
I love that optimism. Right? That's great. All right. So just shifting gears as we wrap up here, do you have any personal habits, mindsets that are helping you stay grounded while leading these global teams and, navigating these complex therapeutic spaces, navigating all this complexity around digital and omnichannel, et cetera, et cetera?
Yeah, great question. So I would say two things. Firstly, organization is huge for me. I really pride myself on it. There are a lot of tools out there, I'm sure you've heard of, but actually one app I've consistently used for both work and for personal is called Todoist.
Okay.
I'm not a sponsor or anything, but I like to say it gives me a really simple but powerful bird's eye view into everything that I need to get done and when. So that really helps reduce that mental clutter there. But then the other thing outside of organization that I really try to lean into is just staying agile. I think people are sometimes afraid to roll up their sleeves and put something imperfect on paper. And so for me, I'd much rather view or review something like a draft, even if it misses the mark, than kind of give some abstract advice. So I like to think that progress happens through iteration in my eyes and not perfection. So
Totally.
Staying agile and being organized.
Organization is so key, and it's something that it's like definitely not a strength of mine at all. So I've got to show you. This is on the video. You can see this is something I love. I love like making little woodworking projects. This is what I built myself. I pulled up 2 blank ones, and I have my work list goes here and my personal list goes there. And generally I can get through 1 index card worth of stuff on a given day. But the best that I've been able to do for myself is prioritization. Maybe that's been my thing. And having it on paper, it's almost what you're saying about the first draft, even though this is literal pen and paper. It's just, you get that nice little feeling when you cross something off your to-do list. It's fantastic.
I'm telling you that, I've lived for that over the years. You get that pen and cross it right off. I've switched to digital though about 10 years ago, but I've always loved crossing things off a list.
Oh my God. If I do something that's not on my list, I write it down so I can cross it.
Just cross it off.
All right. Let me ask you one final question, and then I'll let you get going. But if you could give one piece of advice to someone entering Med Affairs today, maybe about shaping scientific narratives, maybe about omnichannel, maybe about something else, what would it be?
So I would say 2 things, and I love this. Firstly, I'd say fail fast, and then also lead with kindness and empathy. So I would say you learn far more from your mistakes than from playing it safe. If you're not making mistakes, you're probably not growing. So be transparent about what you don't know, stay curious, and keep on innovating. And then, just as importantly, like I said, be kind. People want to work with those that show empathy, follow through, stay organized, bring positive energy to the table. And throughout my years, I've learned that you don't get ahead by being the loudest or the alpha in the room. You really get ahead by being thoughtful, collaborative, and human. So take that in
I love that.
Yeah.
I love that. And it also, especially those 2 things go nicely together, right? Because you're showing good intention, you're showing trust, you're bringing others with you. And that is giving you a little bit of like political coverage to attempt some things that might not work, right? And then they work, they don't work. Sometimes it's very clear. But my hardest thing with fail fast is sometimes it's hard to tell, like, it's rarely does somebody hold up a sign like, you failed at this, change strategy, right? Usually it's like, where are we on the spectrum of it working versus not working, and then making those decisions. But the more that you've like brought others in, the more sounding boards you have, the more that you can just like make decisions together. And sometimes that decision is, we got to take a different route, right? And that's okay. And it's better to learn that quickly than slowly. But I love those 2 things as kind of hand in glove pieces of advice to people.
Yeah. Thank you, Jonathan.
Excellent. All right. Well, I'll leave you. I'll give you a go Bears. I'm gonna not say go Bulls because I have a different stake in that game. But that it was a pleasure. Thank you so much. Have a great holiday season, and we'll talk
soon.
Jonathan. Okay.
All right. You take care. Bye.
Bye. And that's a wrap on today's episode of Pharma Sessions with me, Jonathan Kaskey. If you enjoyed today's conversation, don't forget to hit follow or subscribe and share it with someone else in the pharma world who might need to hear it. For more on pharma trends, career growth, and business strategies, connect with me, Jonathan Kaskey, on LinkedIn. Until next time, thanks for listening.